Have you ever just wished you could float away from it all? You know that feeling of complete lightness? Well, what if I told you that feeling of weightlessness isn't just for astronauts? Today we're diving into a really fascinating idea that sits at the crossroads of science, philosophy, and, well, personal experience, to explore how you might actually become weightless, right here, right now.
It all kicks off with this huge question, one that has been bugging scientists and philosophers for centuries. Does the human soul actually have physical weight? Can you measure it?
So how in the world would you even try to answer a question like that? Well, for some early researchers, the idea was surprisingly simple, almost blunt. Just try to weigh it, put the soul on a scale. I mean, the idea sounds a little crazy, but the implications were absolutely profound.
Okay, so here's the setup. It's pretty straightforward. You take a person who is dying, place them on an incredibly sensitive scale, and you measure their exact weight right at the moment of death. The hypothesis was simple. If a soul or consciousness or something leaves the body, the scale has to dip down, right? I mean, in the world of physics, literally everything has weight. Even a single ray of sunlight has mass. So the soul should too.
But when they actually did the experiments, the results were, well, they were stunning. Time and time again, the scales recorded absolutely no difference. Zero. It was as if whatever leaves the body at death, if anything leaves at all, is completely, totally weightless.
And this is where it gets really weird. Sometimes the body would actually gain a tiny bit of weight right after death. Now, this just presented a whole new puzzle. The source material we're looking at proposes a really interesting reason for this. It suggests that once your consciousness leaves, the body becomes a sort of unprotected vessel. It can then be entered by what the source calls outside vibrations, energies that your consciousness was previously shielding it from.
So, this scientific approach kind of hit a dead end. And that forces us to look at the whole problem from a completely different angle. Instead of focusing on physical matter, this new perspective shifts the focus entirely to the nature of consciousness itself.
So what we have here are two completely opposing views. On one hand, you've got the standard scientific perspective. Everything that exists is matter, and all matter has weight. End of story. But then you have this spiritual view from our source, which argues that you, your core awareness, your consciousness, you're not material at all. You are not your body. And because of that, you are fundamentally, completely weightless.
And this quote right here, it just nails the core of this idea. It's suggesting that the feeling of weight is the main thing that ties our identity to our physical body. So if you can break that feeling, you can break the identification. The key point is this: weight belongs to the body, not to you, the consciousness.
Okay, so this brings us from all this heady theory down to actual practice. How can you really experience this feeling of weightlessness for yourself? Well, the source outlines a very specific meditation technique that's designed to do just that.
It all starts with a specific posture called Siddhasana. You've probably seen it before. It's often called the Buddha posture. And there's a reason for this specific pose. It's designed to create the smallest possible footprint for gravity to pull on, and at the same time, it creates a kind of closed circuit for your body's own inner energy.
So here's how it works. You sit on the ground, spine straight. First, you just gently lean in every direction, forward, back, left, and right, and you really try to feel the pull of gravity. Then, you find that one perfect center point where the pull feels the absolute weakest. Once you're settled right there, that's when the mental part begins. You just forget the body, and you begin to intently feel that you are weightless. And you just continue this feeling. You hold on to it until it becomes your reality.
Now, let's talk about what happens when you practice this, because the implications, well, they range from things we feel in our everyday lives all the way to some truly extraordinary claims.
You know, this whole idea connects directly to things we've all felt. Think about it. When you're incredibly happy, totally blissful, you feel light on your feet, almost like you're floating, right? But when you're sad or depressed, you feel a real physical heaviness, like you're being pulled down into the ground.
And this just reinforces that connection. In those moments of pure joy, you become so absorbed in the feeling that you completely forget you even have a physical body. But in moments of pain or suffering, the body and its weight are pretty much all you can feel. It really suggests that our state of mind has a direct influence on how we perceive our own physical selves.
Okay, so if we take this idea to its most extreme conclusion, we arrive at the claim of levitation. The theory here, as proposed in the source, is that if you can fully and completely break your identification with your body, your consciousness can actually overpower the body's physical weight.
The source even points to what it calls a scientifically observed case of a woman in Bolivia rising 4 feet in the air during meditation. And it mentions ancient legends of spiritual masters who are said to have disappeared completely, body and all.
So, after going through the science, the philosophy, and the actual practice, what's the big takeaway here? What's the final message? It's really all about redefining the relationship you have with your own body. To explain this relationship, the source uses a really powerful metaphor. It says that we are like emperors, beings of infinite potential, who have become so identified with our slaves, our finite physical bodies, that we've completely forgotten our true nature. We've started to think the slave's limitations are our own. The whole key is just to remember who's actually in charge.
And that brings us to the ultimate point. The argument is that our feeling of having weight, of being this solid, heavy thing, it's a form of self-hypnosis. It's just a belief that we have internalized so deeply that we accept it as an absolute reality. So this whole meditation on weightlessness is presented as a method to dehypnotize ourselves, to wake up to the fact that we are so much more than just our physical forms.
And that really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We spend so much time and energy worrying about physical weight, but what if the heaviest, most burdensome thing that we carry around with us every single day is just a belief? A belief about who we really are.